Thank you. It's great to be here today. My name is Stefan Gerard. First I want to thank everybody at CannaTech for putting on really an extraordinary show here, and everybody here in the audience as well. I'm relatively new to this community, and the welcome that I've had, the information that has been shared, the openness of everyone here to build this community together is really incredible. But one thing that stood out more than anything else is the level of enthusiasm amongst the folks here. I've been to a lot of conferences, and so few times do you see people with the energy and the excitement about what lies in the future. Most of it is oftentimes either sort of doom and gloom. And so hats off to you all for really pioneering and for taking this to the next level and being willing to take the risks to really forge a new pathway. But the one thing that I want to share with you today, there's some lessons that I've learned, both as a global marketer working in Canada today, but also from my experience working in the United States. I'm an American who just recently moved to Toronto. I work at an agency called Ben Simon Byrne, and we're a full-service agency that works across a wide range of categories. But we've also had the privilege of working with a number of Canada's leading cannabis brands. And what I want to talk about today is sort of the intersection between that learning and also the learning that I've had working in restricted markets in spirits, beer, and wine, as well as pharmaceutical industries, and with clients like GW Pharmaceuticals, who was a client of ours in New York City at my last agency. All of this comes together to provide somewhat of a framework for us as entrepreneurs and business people in the cannabis space when it comes to the topic of creating brands. And I want to thank Alan Gardner yesterday for doing a beautiful job of really framing what the issue is when it comes to brands today. We have a very exciting story to tell in this industry, but it is about being able to make that story accessible and real to people so they can feel it on an emotional level. But rather than give you a discussion today that's conceptual or theoretical, what I wanted to do was really do something very practical. And that is to build a brand from scratch today. Let's see. Yes. How to build a cannabis brand in 20 minutes. Now I have 19 minutes left, so let's see if we can do this together today. So we're going to start with the very basic fundamentals of what it takes to create a brand, how to market that brand, and then in fact, get all the way through into your digital and social strategy. And we're going to do it in 19 minutes. Think we can do that? All right. I'm hopeful. I hope you will come with me on this journey. So let's start right here. Everyone in this audience, whether you in fact do this for a living, I want you all to imagine that right now you are a marketer. All right? Everyone in here is now anointed the marketer in their organization, and as that marketer, your first job is to find customers. And your second job is then, once you find those customers, is to sell a product. That's the essence of marketing, just in the simplest of terms. So in order to do that, we're going to need a name. So let's come up with a name. Something original, something unique, something like CannaBrand. All right? So CannaBrand is the name of our business. It is the name of our brand. But that's probably not enough. Because what we need to do is figure out is why should people buy our brand of product? Now, we could think immediately about the product itself, which is it's green, it's lovely, and it smells great. That seems like a good enough reason or a great way to talk about our brand because it reflects what the product is all about at its core. Well, I wanted to ask you, if you were Nike and you did this very same thing, you might end up with a brand that looks a little bit like, we make comfortable, sporty, and great for running shoes. But as we all know, Nike did not build their billion-dollar business based upon their product description. So we probably should not do that either. Because what they did do was they focused on the idea of brand. Brand being an emotional story that makes the product accessible to an audience and allows for that company to begin and continue to innovate in ways that will always satisfy that base relationship that you want to have with your consumer. So there is a tendency to want to think about brand as product. We're very proud of the products that we're bringing to market. We're very proud of the IP that differentiates them. We're very proud about all the profiles of them. But the thing about product And the difference about brand and product is that no matter how defensible your IP is, at some point, somebody's going to come along who is better, faster, and stronger than you are. There's going to come a time in your history when you will hit a roadblock or a hiccup. And you're going to want your customers to stay with you through that challenging time. You're going to want them to go the extra mile for you. And what's going to make them go the extra mile for you is the brand. But it's also why they pay more for it. It's the pricing power that you have over your competitors. It's the reason people seek you out, why people choose you. And that choice is something that happens deep down here, not necessarily here. And that's another reason why it's so incredibly important to think beyond the product when we begin to develop our brands and our communications and our stories. Because it has been scientifically proven, I know marketing is kind of a soft science, but the one thing that has been tested over and over again is what is triggering persuasion. And emotional storytelling, 3-to-1, is more persuasive than rational information. So if we're going to make an impression upon our consumer that's going to create a relationship that's going to be durable and lasting, that will allow us to pivot through all the challenges, we're going to have to do it through some emotional connection. So what I'm going to talk about today is how to develop that emotional connection, how to connect that emotional intelligence or that emotional connection to your audience through your marketing program, and how you're actually going to create a system that increases the likelihood that your customer will continue to find and enjoy your product. So first thing up is relevant and ownable connection. Then we'll get into the other two steps. So step 1, a relevant and ownable connection with your consumer. Now let's go back to our Nike example one more time. If you're Nike, and it's back in the day, in the beginning, early days of it, and you're going to look at two things. You're going to try and figure out the connection between the consumer and the brand. So you go out there, you do your consumer research, and you're looking for that intersection point between the consumer and the brand. And what you find out is that the consumer, more than anything else, wants to be more athletic. That's why they buy running equipment or any kind of athletic gear. They want to be more athletic. And you also need to investigate what it is that your brand stands for. So you talk with your principals. You find out what is true and authentic about your company that makes it different from other companies. What motivates you as a company to wake up in the morning and do what you do. And in the case of Nike, you're an ex-track and field coach. You have a belief system in people. And that belief system is that if you have a body, you are an athlete. So that's an interesting opportunity right there. If you have a belief system that if you have a body, if everybody out there has that potential, and everybody who is your potential customer wants that for themselves, that's a powerful connection. So for Nike, for the athlete in all of us, that's the connection that they've forged there. So what are we going to do if it comes to CannaBrand? Let's look at this. Same goal. Let's interview our consumer. Let's talk to our principals. Let's understand the connection point. And so we talk to our consumer, and we find out, boy, they love movies. Amongst many other things in their lives, they like food, they like music. But one of the things that really stood out across a wide swath of the potential customer base for our brand was that they love movies. And guess what? You know what? Our product goes great with movies. But more than just the fact that it goes great with movies, our principals, in fact, started this company because they love movies. It was one of the impetuses behind it. It's one of their great passions. And they share this passion with our audience. So we're just choosing that. This is going to be the basis for CannaBrand. And so our relevant connection is for the love of movies. So at the core of our relationship is this shared passion. And it's this shared passion that will mean that we can have a relevant relationship with our consumer in the same way that you would with anybody in your life. You guys like the same things. You go out, you share the same experiences. You have a meaningful connection. So next, now that we've discovered that meaningful connection, how are we actually going to demonstrate that promise? All right? So let's unpack that a little bit. A promise. The promise is the idea of the role in your consumer's life that you're going to play. I sometimes think about this as, what is the consumer hiring the brand to do? Am I hiring the brand to make me smarter or faster or better looking, to wake me up in the morning, to save me time, to save me money. What is that promise? Why am I hiring that brand to do for me? And then once you know what that is, the question is, how do you prove it? And what I mean by prove it, it's kind of back to, creative writing 101. Show it, don't tell it. Don't tell me that you love the same thing that I do. Show me that you love the same thing that I do. Show me your promise. Don't just tell me, otherwise it's just empty words. So you have to prove it. All right, so let's go back to our Nike example. Again, something we all understand. Their promise is to inspire. And how did they do that? Well, they prove that promise in everything they do from a marketing perspective. They have sponsorships of the top flight athletes. They have beautiful emotional advertising that is inspirational to all of us and makes us all want to go out and do whatever it is that Nike wants us to do. And they endorse some of the finest athletes, the most inspirational figures out there in the world. And unfortunately, we can't use any of those things in our business. So what do? This is where looking at the sort of restricted market approach is so helpful. And this is one of the things that's going to be the lesson for today more than anything else. The models exist out there for how to do this. The models exist for how to do this. So this is, even though this is the wild, wild west in some ways, there's lots of lessons we can borrow from other industries. So what is going to be the way that we're going to do that? Borrowing from, I think heavily from the spirits, the beer, and the wine world, we're going to use culture. Culture is a ready-made platform for connecting emotionally with your consumer about things that they care about. All of the communities are already formed. The influencers who are these sources of authority for those communities are already in place. The narrative already exists. What we need to do is to tap into it and to be additive to it. We have to show that we understand, respect, and are from the same culture as our audience. And that's why it's so important to have that authentic basis for your brand. I will say one thing, just I want to note about that authentic basis for the brand. If you chose something esoteric, perhaps, and I mean esoteric only in the sense that it's not core to your product, let's say that the emotional connection between your brand and your audience was going to be social justice. Would that work? And the answer I'm going to say is no. Because why that is still relevant to your audience, your product is not necessarily essential to it. And if you do want to make it essential, you have to demonstrate how. So one of the important things when it comes to having that authentic connection with the culture or audience is that the connection your product needs to be essential to that connection. In the case of our movies, it really does. It fits beautifully in. Now, the nice thing about culture is there's lots of ways in. Music, sleep, health, food, literary, creative, wellness, sports, mystical, the list goes on. These are all potential avenues by which you can connect with the culture of your audience by looking at the connection that your brand has to them. In our case, it's movie culture. So we now have our connection, we have our promise, which is making watching movies better. So we have a product that is essential to the culture of our audience that can make that thing better. Our promise is to consistently deliver against that. We are going to make watching movies better, and we are going to prove it by our activity, by our behavior code. We are going to create movie-enhancing experiences. Perhaps we do screenings. We're going to create content with key influencers on social media who can tell our story directly to their audiences in the most authentic way because they share our love of cannabis and movies. And finally, we're going to get involved in all the conversations that are already going on in movie-enhancing conversations. We're going to talk in those conversations. Trust me, there is a community for everything. There is a conversation going on about every cultural touch point in the world. We just have to find them and find ways of smartly adding to those conversations. So we've now done the first two steps. That basically is your marketing program. And as you saw, it does not rely upon expensive advertising. But you know what you stand for, and then you prove your role in their life by demonstrating it in the existing culture that exists out there. So whether that is content, whether that is experiential, whether that is social conversation, whether that's PR. Those are all the ways to get your message out there into that audience. So the third step is a system to help your consumer get better at, and the important part here is the lower half, at finding, enjoying your product, and enjoying their passions. So think of a system as all the touch points, oops, wrong way, as all the touch points that already exist again out there. So everyone's got a smartphone, everyone's connected to the World Wide Web, everyone's on Facebook, everyone's on Instagram. These are all the consumer touch points, plus the retail environments, plus the experiential environments, plus the concerts you might go to or the movie screenings you might go to. All of these things are consumer touch points. The idea here now is to link them together effectively so that it makes it easier for your customer to find your product, to connect with each other, and what you're really doing is providing utility. So how can you use these communication platforms to make it easier for your customer to find you, to enjoy you, and to connect with the other like-minded people? At every step of the way, your job is to deliver value. And by delivering value and creating utility, you are creating a relationship with your customer where they're going to keep coming back to you because you are, in fact, doing exactly this. You are delivering value. In their stream, you're also delivering your product message. You're delivering your brand story. You're normalizing the behavior. You're connecting them with the community, so that also furthers the normalization and the mainstreaming of their behavior. So, back to our Nike example. What does Nike do? Nike helps runners become better runners, right? And they don't just do this by making better shoes or better apparel. What they're doing actually is they're creating a whole host of programs. Think about Nike Plus. Think about Nike Connect. Think about all the marathons that they host. All of these things are designed for one thing, which is to help their customer, their consumer, get better at the thing that they share in common, which is running in this case. So what are we going to do? We're going to help people to get more out of their movie experiences. And we're going to use that system that we just designed, the connection points between your website, your social pages, all the different feeds that you are able to tap into of your audience and your community to, in fact, deliver this, to help them get more out of their movie experience. And you're going to do that by providing education, connection, and information. These are all easy ways, low-cost ways where you take what you know about your customer, you take your shared love that you have with your customer, and you choose the lane that you want to swim in, and this is the area where you actually deliver the goods to them on a daily basis so that you maintain a relationship. You maintain the fact that you're top of mind after the initial experience that they had with you. This is the permission to continually stay in touch with and to continue to tell the story together with them. And in fact, to reflect back to them their own stories. So, we've now built our brand. CannaBrand, the choice of movie lovers everywhere. So we're differentiated, we're specific, we're connected. And we've done this by employing the three simple steps I talked about. First, we forged a shared connection. In this case, it was for the love of movies. Next, we demonstrated our brand promise, and we proved it. And that was about making watching movies better. And then we designed a system, which is essentially our social and digital strategy for engagement, for making it better, for helping them to enjoy it, by getting more out of their movie-going experience on an ongoing basis. So we did that in 17 minutes and 13 seconds. Thank you. I guess I'll take any questions for 2 minutes if.
Yeah, let's do some questions.
We talked 2 days ago about the social justice thing briefly. Mm-hmm. And that was so helpful, your comment about social justice and it not being, the product not being essential to that positioning, I guess, is if I can.
Yeah, that's very well put.
Okay. So I need to make it essential. So
you have to draw that connection. You have to demonstrate why there is a connection. Some are very easy. that just fall right out of the sky, like watching movies or eating food or listening to music. Other ones are more challenging. And your behavior is what counts, because if you want to legitimately build or forge a connection between yourself for which the product is not obviously essential, like do you need to actually be consuming this product to be and enjoy social justice or believe in that? Probably not. But if you can demonstrate how your company and your brand contribute actively to it, then you can get further along that pathway.
That's helpful. I'm going to hire you. I can't afford you, though.
Thank you. Do we have time for anything else?
Let's have one more.
Yes, one more.
Down the front.
I'll try it fast. He said he can't afford you. It sounds like because it's so expensive to advertise in this business and to find someone to buy in different countries with the laws, maybe the cannabis will be too expensive.
Well, everything I outlined today avoids the trap in some ways of what we call above-the-line advertising in terms of television. In terms of, this is not that, it is very, very helpful to have a budget to do anything, as I'm sure we all know. But building a relationship with a customer base can be a very intimate thing that is done through social channels and through digital channels largely. Most of the things I pointed out today do not require large spends. What they do is they require excellent execution. So if you're going to spend anything, think not so much about the size of your budget, but the acumen of your team. Marketing is a science and an art, and it needs both a good client and a good agency. It doesn't necessarily, it's better to be smart than to be rich. It's better to be smart and rich, but it's better to be smart than it is to be rich when it comes to this, because you can waste a lot of money poorly executing all the things I just talked about. I think that's about all the time we've got, so thank you all very, very much.